You heard of the college student who vanished while cross-country skiing near Lake Michigan, only to wake up 15 months later, 700 miles away, with no memory of where he had been? In February 1978, 20-year-old Stephen Kubacki went cross-country skiing near Lake Michigan in western Michigan. But when he failed to return that evening, search teams discovered his ski tracks leading directly to the frozen lake edge. Authorities found his skis, poles, and backpack abandoned at the water's edge with no signs of struggle, and investigators concluded he likely fell through the ice and drowned in the freezing waters below. Search and rescue teams dragged the lake for weeks, but no body was ever recovered. No witnesses came forward, and the case was eventually classified as a presumed drowning, with remains lost to Lake Michigan. In May 1979, exactly 15 months after his disappearance, Stephen Kubacki woke up in a field in Pittsfield, Massachusetts, wearing unfamiliar clothes he did not recognize and carrying a satchel with strange maps inside. Medical examinations found him physically healthy, but with complete memory loss of the entire 15-month period. And despite extensive interviews, Stephen could not explain how he traveled 739 miles, or what happened during his missing time. Despite theories ranging from psychological fugue states to the mysterious Michigan Triangle phenomenon, no definitive explanation has ever emerged, and Stephen himself refused to publicly discuss the incident for decades. What do you think happened during those 15 missing months? Subscribe for more unexplained historical events told through the dark lens. Have you heard of the 1973 case where a late-night drive ended with one man claiming a towering creature tried to drag him into the woods, with police writing up every chilling detail? Outside a small town in Pennsylvania, strange lights and tall, shadowy figures had been reported for weeks. So when the phone rang at the local police station one October night, officers were already on edge. A young man said he and two friends had followed a glowing object into a field, only to spot a towering, hair-covered figure with glowing eyes walking along a fence line toward them. According to their statements, the creature was nearly 8 feet tall, broad-shouldered, and moving slowly, but deliberately close enough that the witnesses said they could hear its. One of the men fired several warning shots, claiming the creature barely reacted, and moments later, the strange lights in the sky reportedly blinked out, leaving the field in total darkness. When a state investigator arrived, he found deep impressions in the ground and recorded the witnesses' stories in detail, later calling it one of the most unusual cases he'd ever logged. Skeptics point to fear, misidentification, or even a hoax, but believers still cite this 1973 file as a rare case where alleged Bigfoot activity and unexplained lights collided in one chilling report. What really happened in those Pennsylvania woods? Panic, prank, or something history still can't explain? Subscribe for more unexplained historical events through the dark lens. Have you heard of the 6 weeks at Buna, where soldiers said each day felt longer than the rest of their lives combined? Late 1942, New Guinea. Buna wasn't a famous city or a grand battlefield, just a strip of jungle, swamp, and sand where tired men were told they had to win. The enemy wasn't just the gunfire ahead, it was the choking heat, soaked uniforms, mud that swallowed boots, and unseen sickness spreading silently through every camp. 6 weeks of pushing through that nightmare where every sunrise felt like another lifetime and every sunset brought the same question. Would tomorrow bring relief, or just more of the same? What kept them going wasn't medals or glory. It was the man beside them, sharing what little they had and holding on to hope when the jungle seemed to close in around them. Those 6 weeks at Buna left marks that never faded, a reminder that survival tests the mind as much as the body. Subscribe for more unexplained historical events through the dark lens. Have you heard of the German prisoners of war who called American detention camps heaven compared to wartime Europe, with some gaining over 50 pounds during their captivity? Between 1942 and 1945, over 425,000 German POWs were transported to more than 500 camps across the United States, expecting harsh treatment, but finding conditions that exceeded Geneva Convention standards. Prisoners discovered barracks with hot showers, steam heat, flush toilets, and electric lights, plus food rations that included fresh milk, eggs, meat, vegetables, and white bread that exceeded German military standards. While European camps faced starvation and brutal conditions, American POWs were paid for labor, had access to canteens, recreational activities, and cultural programs that allowed them to maintain dignity and health. Documented accounts reveal one POW gained 57 pounds in 2 years and explicitly called the experience heaven, while others formed friendly relationships with local American communities and received humane treatment throughout. Medical records and prisoner letters confirm that German POWs received better nutrition and living conditions in American camps than many civilians experienced in war-torn Europe during the same period. After the war, many former POWs maintained positive memories of their American captivity, with some returning to the United States as immigrants, crediting their treatment for changing their perspective on democracy. What surprised you most about this untold story? Subscribe for more unexplained historical events, told through the dark lens. Halloween investigation that the FBI completed just hours before the planned date. In October 2024, 4 individuals from Dearborn, Michigan, were investigated for suspicious activity in Detroit's suburbs. They used encrypted messaging and code names in their communications to maintain privacy. Federal agents discovered the group had acquired firearms, equipment, and surveillance gear. They had conducted reconnaissance of multiple locations, and one individual had expressed interest in international travel. On Halloween night, FBI agents executed search warrants at their residences and secured the weapons and equipment. The operation concluded without any incidents or harm to the public. All 4 individuals were charged with federal offenses, though their attorneys presented alternative explanations for their activities and equipment purchases. Subscribe for more unexplained historical events through the dark lens. So isolated, their last name became a legend of its own. Around the 1910s and 1920s, deep in the hills of rural West Virginia, the Whitakers settled in a tiny, isolated community, living for generations in the same small cluster of homes, rarely leaving their valley. By the 1950s and 1960s, nearby towns were whispering about them, stories of a family that kept to themselves, children who almost never went to regular schools, and a way of life that felt trapped in an older time. Local records from the mid-1900s show the same family names repeating over and over, the same land passed down, and lives spent almost entirely within a few winding back roads and hills. By the late 20th century, when outsiders finally started paying attention, the Whitakers were treated as a shocking story instead of a family carrying the heavy weight of generations of isolation. So were the Whitakers cursed, or were they abandoned by the world around them long before anyone noticed? Tell me what you think in the comments, and subscribe for more unexplained historical events through the dark lens.
Everyone knows Al Capone,
But almost no one knows the man who outsmarted the entire US government without spilling a drop of blood. 1920, Prohibition begins. Overnight, millions of Americans thirst for alcohol. But Bill McCoy saw opportunity where others saw barriers. He created America's first sophisticated distribution system. His fleet of high-speed boats transported premium spirits from Canada to the East Coast. Operating just outside the 3-mile territorial limit, he found the legal loophole that made him untouchable. When competitors tried to copy his methods, Bill McCoy had already established his market dominance. Was he a brilliant innovator or a strategic mastermind? His operation thrived for years, even under government scrutiny. Bill McCoy, the Rum King, who essentially created modern duty-free commerce during Prohibition. Think you know Prohibition? Think again. What's the one thing Capone couldn't do that McCoy could? Share your thoughts in the comments and subscribe for more historical cold case that remained unsolved for over 3 decades until DNA technology finally identified a suspect in 2024. In 1992, a woman was found deceased in Portland, Oregon. Despite extensive investigation by local law enforcement, the case went cold, with no viable leads or suspects identified for 32 years. In 2023, investigators reopened the case using advanced forensic genealogy techniques. They submitted preserved DNA evidence to a specialized laboratory that built a family tree connecting genetic markers to potential relatives. The genealogy research led investigators to a suspect living in another state. In March 2024, law enforcement made an arrest after confirming the DNA match through additional testing and evidence review. The case demonstrates how modern forensic science can solve decades-old investigations that were previously considered unsolvable with traditional methods. What do you think led to this breakthrough after 32 years? Subscribe for more unexplained historical events told through the dark lens. Have you ever heard of the so-called Romani king, whose followers claimed his true grave was hidden, and the monument everyone visits might be a decoy? In April 1929, in Dayton, Ohio, that Romani king was Frank P. Stanley, a respected leader of a traveling community whose family had crossed from England to America in the 1800s. Instead of being laid to rest in the family plot at Woodland Cemetery, his mother insisted he be buried at Calvary Cemetery, inside the Ely Mausoleum, away from where people expected. Visitors who search for his grave at Calvary find something unsettling. The mausoleum he's said to be in doesn't even bear his name on the stone. Every April, cemetery workers have reported quiet visitors and broken wine bottles left by the mausoleum door, signs of a private ritual for someone the public can't find on any marker. Some believe this was deliberate, a way to honor him like royalty within his community while hiding his exact resting place from outsiders and curious onlookers. So when people walk past that unmarked mausoleum in Dayton today, they may have no idea who lies inside. Subscribe for more unexplained historical events through the dark lens. A Cold War defector met a sinister fate on a London bridge. A seemingly innocent umbrella, a hidden pellet, and a deadly secret that would shock the world. This was Georgy Markov, a defiant Bulgarian writer whose powerful radio broadcasts from London relentlessly exposed the regime he'd fled. But his words carried a grave price, and unseen forces were closing in, determined to silence him forever. September 7th, 1978, near London's bustling Waterloo Bridge, Markov felt a fleeting, sharp prick in his thigh. A quick, mumbled apology from a stranger with an umbrella, then he was gone. But within hours, Markov's body began to fail. Rushed to the hospital, doctors made a chilling discovery: a microscopic 1.5mm metal pellet lodged in his leg, carrying a potent, unseen substance. The truth began to surface. This was no accident. It was a sophisticated assassination orchestrated by Bulgarian security services, potentially aided by a powerful Cold War intelligence agency. The umbrella wasn't just an umbrella, it was a weapon designed to deliver its deadly payload with chilling precision. Markov's death became a stark warning, a dark testament to the lengths regimes would go to silence dissent. To this day, no one has ever been officially convicted. Many key records vanished after the regime's collapse, leaving questions unanswered. What do you think happened? Share your theories in the comments and subscribe to Dark Lens History for more unexplained events seen through the shadows. Who left for a 20-minute drive with her little boy, and then both disappeared without a trace? In 1982, they were last seen leaving a relative's house just before dusk, promising to be home in 20 minutes. No signs of trouble, just an ordinary goodbye that quietly became their final confirmed sighting. Police found the car neatly parked off a quiet rural road days later, doors locked, a grocery list on the passenger seat, and a child's toy on the floor, with no clear reason they would have stopped there at all. Tips drifted in for years, supposed sightings in nearby towns, and a few anonymous calls. But every lead fell apart or went nowhere, and the file slowly slipped into the cold case shelves. Decades later, a hiker, following an overgrown trail, discovered weathered personal items under a fallen tree. A woman's ID, a child's shoe, and a key ring linked back to that missing family, less than a mile from where the car was found. That discovery forced a fresh look at the old reports. Photos were re-examined, maps redrawn, and forgotten notes from the first search teams suddenly seemed far more important than they had in the early 80s. Some investigators now suspect a tragic wrong turn and exposure, while others quietly wonder if someone chose that remote road for a reason. But without clear proof, the case remains a haunting question mark in the records. What do you think really happened to the missing mother and her son? Tragic accident, planned disappearance, or a secret still hidden in those woods? Subscribe for more unexplained historical events told through the dark lens. Have you heard of the Ozark widow who buried 12 bodies behind her remote cabin? With authorities discovering the remains only after neighbors reported a disturbing smell in 1877. In the isolated Ozark Mountains of Missouri, a widowed woman named Elizabeth lived alone in a cabin miles from the nearest town, known to locals as a reclusive herbalist who rarely spoke to visitors. Between 1875 and 1877, her husband, 2 children, and several traveling workers who stayed at her property all died under mysterious circumstances, with deaths officially recorded as consumption or natural causes. In spring 1877, neighbors reported a foul odor coming from behind the cabin, and when authorities investigated, they discovered 12 shallow graves containing bodies in various stages of decomposition. Medical examinations revealed traces of arsenic and hemlock in multiple victims, and investigators found Elizabeth kept detailed journals documenting symptoms and dosages, though she claimed they were medical observations for healing purposes. During questioning, Elizabeth maintained her innocence, insisting the deaths were natural and that she buried them on her property due to poverty. But prosecutors argued the journal entries proved premeditated poisoning over 2 years. Before the trial concluded, Elizabeth died in custody under suspicious circumstances, with some claiming suicide by her own poison, and others suspecting foul play, leaving the full truth buried with her victims. What do you think really happened in those Ozark Mountains? Subscribe for more unexplained historical events told through the dark lens. Who vanished after finding a cave shaped like an M. In 2014, Kenny Veach, an experienced solo hiker and video creator, posted about a cave he found in a remote Nevada desert area. He said the entrance was shaped like an M, and as he got close, his whole body started to feel a strange buzzing sensation, so he turned back. Viewers were fascinated and pushed him to go back and prove what he'd found. So Kenny returned to the desert alone, determined to relocate the M cave and finally document it on camera. Days later, his car was discovered parked at a trailhead. Search teams combed canyons, old pathways, and rugged terrain, eventually finding his phone, but no Kenny, no campsite, no gear, and no clear trail showing where he went. The exact location of the M cave has never been confirmed. Some think he fell near a hidden drop or cave. Others believe he got lost in the harsh landscape, and many still wonder if there was something out there that very few people were meant to find. The M cave remains one of the desert's most talked about unanswered questions. Did Kenny Veach take one risk too many on a desert hike, or is there more to this mystery than we know? Thoughtful? Comment what you think happened, and subscribe for more unexplained historical events through the dark. Have you heard of the 7-year-old boy who vanished from his elementary school during a science fair in 2010? With hundreds of witnesses present, but no one saw him leave? On June 4, 2010, Kyron Horman arrived at Skyline Elementary School in Portland, Oregon, with his stepmother Terry, excited to show off his tree frog science project, and was last seen walking down the hallway at 8:45 a.m. When the school bus arrived home that afternoon without Kyron, his parents called the school and discovered he'd been marked absent all day, despite multiple witnesses seeing him that morning, triggering the largest search operation in Oregon history. Over 1,200 volunteers searched 11,000 acres surrounding the school, while investigators focused on stepmother Terry Horman, who failed 2 polygraph tests and whose timeline had unexplained gaps. But no evidence was ever found to charge her. Detectives discovered Terry had attempted to hire a landscaper to harm Kyron's father months earlier, sent suspicious text messages the day of the disappearance, and her alibi included a drive to a remote gym that couldn't be verified. Some believe Kyron was abducted by a stranger during the chaotic science fair, while others suspect foul play involving someone close to him. But with no body, no witnesses, and no physical evidence, the case remains completely unsolved. Kyron's biological mother, Desiree Young, continues searching 15 years later, keeping his case in the public eye and maintaining hope he's still alive, while Skyline Elementary implemented new security protocols that changed school safety nationwide. What do you think happened to Kyron Horman? Subscribe for more unexplained historical events told through the dark lens. Have you heard of the wedding celebration that ended with an entire family vanishing without a trace, only for the chilling truth to surface decades later? In 1978, a small family gathered at a countryside chapel to celebrate a quiet wedding ceremony. But when the reception ended that evening, 3 family members never made it home. Authorities found the wedding car abandoned on a remote dirt road, miles from the venue, with the bride's bouquet still on the back seat and the engine cold. Search teams combed the surrounding woods for weeks, but no bodies, no witnesses, and no clear motive ever emerged, and the case went cold for over 30 years. In 2011, a construction crew clearing land for a new highway unearthed skeletal remains and personal items matching descriptions from the original missing persons report. Forensic analysis revealed signs of blunt force trauma, and investigators now believe the family encountered someone on that isolated road who turned their celebration into a tragedy. Despite the discovery, no suspect was ever charged, and many details about what happened that night remain locked in the past. What do you think really happened on that wedding night? Subscribe for more unexplained historical events told through the dark lens